Retaining customers, loyalty are the two hottest topics in OTT in India.
Hi everyone, for today's episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focused on monetization in streaming video, I have the pleasure to have Viniit Mehta with me from, I think, Dubai, correct, Vinit?
That's correct. I'm in sunny Dubai.
And
Hi,
I'm
Carlo.
in sunny Torino with 24 degrees Celsius difference, I think. We calculated before. So tell me a bit about what you're doing in Dubai and what's your background in the, in the streaming industry.
So 20 plus years of experience working across e-commerce and media tech. My most recent and famous claim to fame is working at Brightcove. I was the country manager for Brightcove in India for close to 5 years. Grew that business from scratch to multi-million ARR, and that was really the time when Reliance Jio was setting up shop in India and changed the game for bandwidth. And as a result, we saw this big streaming revolution. So I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time and helped more than 100 plus broadcasters, publishers, OTT platforms launch their direct-to-consumer streaming experiences. And also, we played a role, Carlo, of a thought advisor, really, and a thought leader by showcasing some of the best practices of streaming, monetization, distribution from the West, and the experience that Brightcove had in the US and Europe, and brought those same learnings to our part of the world, which is, India primarily. Played a role of guiding people on how to make money on video, what technology to use, how do you distribute, etc. And post-pandemic, we moved as a family to Dubai last year, actually. And I was consulting and working with Endeavor Streaming, which is part of the Endeavor Group. We were growing that business in the Middle East, but also India. Post-Endeavor, I am still consulting various media companies and media tech organizations. And we also set up a small investment bank called Mehta Ventures Dubai to help startups raise capital.
Okay, cool. So you touched on India and the expansion of streaming, because I think there is either a misconception or a gap in understanding from our European American point of view. The whole storytelling is all about the US media market, and then we talk about Europe. But then we see, 55 million concurrent for streaming for cricket in India. And we think, okay, the old story was India is not really developed, the devices are not there, the bandwidth is there, people are not inclined to pay. Tell me exactly what is the streaming landscape in general in India these days? With the, I know about Hotstar, etc., but give me a picture.
No, great question. So, you have to almost view India like the United States of India. You travel 200 kilometers in India and everything changes, right? There are 42 plus languages. So the language changes, the culture changes, what people eat changes, what people consume to watch every day changes. So, it's an interesting dynamic India is. And it reflects in the media entertainment as well. So we have 60 plus OTT platforms, 1.4 billion people, 60 plus OTT platforms in the country. Cricket is a religion, and that's reflected in streaming sports in the country. And as a result, we saw the record of 54 million concurrent users, 54 or 55 million concurrent users that Disney plus Hotstar got in the recent Cricket World Cup. So, it's a very interesting potpourri, I would say, of content, commerce, community, the creator, and low bandwidth, and a plethora of devices that comes together to create this fascinating OTT and streaming market, where it's really streaming first in many ways, but it's interesting that is one of the few markets where streaming is growing significantly, but we also have the television and the linear market also growing. So there's cord cutting happening, but there's a significant population of people that still do not have a television. So they're buying television, but they're also streaming content online. So, it's you have a very interesting dynamic where people are consuming content. The targeting of content is happening to Indians in India, but you also have a diaspora audience, which is paying significantly more money, where the OTT platforms have offerings for India and Indians in India, but also Indians outside India, where most of the revenue also comes from. So it's a fascinating market.
And what about monetizing? So is it all ad-based? There are different ways of monetizing, because we also, again, the storytelling is, it's very difficult to monetize in India.
No, it is. So I would agree with that basically, even though people are now paying for content in India, and traditionally, even with your cable television, people were still paying for their cable bill in India. So people are used to paying for content, but people expect significantly more value in India for the amount of money they're paying. So it is a low ARPU, or the average revenue per user in India is significantly lower than the West. However, that is made up for the huge numbers in terms of the people who would actually consume the content. So you obviously want your subscriber numbers to be high, because your ARPU is that much lower in India. I would also say that SVOD, or subscription video on demand, always works in India as a hybrid model. You will not see a pure SVOD player in India be wildly successful. It's always the hybrid players like Disney plus Hotstar that will have content available for free, but then have premium content where you try and get people in for the free content, but then upsell them by having a subscription layer. That's one, Carlo. Also, I was just telling you before we started that there's a concept in India of sachets. So this was started by a company called Kavin Care, which is a detergent and soap manufacturer in South India. And they were selling soaps and shampoos and detergents in small packs. So people would only buy detergents and shampoos for one use. You buy the sachet, a small plastic sachet, for 1 rupee or 2 rupees. You use it, wash your hair, and you're done. And then you use it.
Not an issue.
And then you use it after a week, right? So you only buy what you need. Similarly, I think the opportunities that people are now exploring in OTT is microtransactions, where you basically pay for the time that you actually watch the content.
Oh, wow.
Or, let's say TVOD, transaction video on demand, or pay-per-view would work really well. There's an example of Fancode, which is the third largest sports streamer in the country today. They show a lot of the tier 2, tier 3 sports. And they have this thing where you can only buy a season pass, or a match pass, or a monthly pass, or a quarterly pass, or an annual pass. So they've literally sliced and diced the offering in a way that's acceptable to as wide of an audience as possible.
So basically, the reasoning behind is, as we need to have huge audiences with low ARPU, we need to make everything possible to get closer to what they can afford when they want to watch something. So that's why you're going with a lot of offering, which on one end has the drawback effect of being a bit confusing. But if you're into scavenging the best price for the content, I think that's what you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you know how we are in the OTT space, Carlo, and there's a massive competition for eyeballs.
Yeah.
I would say we are in this attention economy, right? So, or the eyeball economy, as we call it. And you have, the creator economy and the short form apps. India, for example, the Chinese apps are banned, right? So there's no TikTok. There's no TikTok in India. So you have the tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities where you have like millions of creators who want to express themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And they are not used to Instagrams of the world. So there are these specific apps called, there's one app called ShareChat, which is the India's answer to TikTok. And there's another app called Josh. Again, you have this creator economy mushrooming. And, that's sort of also, those guys also will eventually tomorrow create content for OTT, because that's how they start, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these hyper local OTT platforms for the masses, which you and I, for example, I'm in the trade, so I know of these companies. There's a company called Stage OTT, right? They create, that's an OTT for dialects. So within languages, you also have a concept of dialect.
Oh, see, like in Italy, yes.
Like in Italy, right? Exactly. So, once you include dialects in the languages pyramid, you have hundreds of variants of the same language.
Yeah.
And so you create content, and those guys, again, the way they say subscribe, they say recharge. They don't use the word subscribe. because people in India are using prepaid telco connections. Most of them, they don't have postpaid connections when they subscribe to a telco. So they pay 50 rupees to get this much, X GB of data, this much talk time, this much SMS, right? And so they use the concept. So they're used to recharging their prepaid connections for telco. So what Stage is doing is going to that audience and saying, hey, you're used to that. They don't understand the word subscribe.
And what about the concept of retaining in this very, if you want, complex ecosystem? How do you retain customer? Is it something that companies like streaming services are focused on, or they just go wide reach, they don't care about keeping the customer?
Oh no, it's such a relevant topic in India today, Carlo, because what's happening is that Zee and Sony, the top media companies, are merging.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you might have Reliance Jio acquiring Star and Disney assets. So Disney plus Hotstar could be part of Jio, and you have Zee and Sony. And then that's the top of the pyramid. But then in the pyramid, you have like 45, 50 other streamers vying for eyeballs. Every state in India has 3 or 4 potential OTTs that are vying for the same customer. So retaining customers, loyalty are the 2 hottest topics in OTT in India. There's a lot of time being spent by the administrators, the management of these OTT platforms to try and devise ways to retain customers. And I think companies like Kling, for example, with all the use of AI and predictive models to try and predict which cohort of users are most likely to churn, I think that sort of data it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine because you have the sheer volume of customers, right? You can't use a standard software. You have the numbers are too big. You need to have an AI model or some software like Kling's or equivalent to actually guide these people who are managing their businesses, because they're so complex.
Absolutely. And the fact that even the country is so fragmented, it means you need an extra level of intelligence with very local intelligence in sense of business analyst intelligence, I think. Okay, absolutely. Wow. So we should do another episode going deeper on India, maybe later on next year, because I think it's such a fascinating region, fascinating matter, I think. Thank you for doing this, Vinit. Enjoy the warm Dubai weather.
Thank you, Carlo. Appreciate it.
Ciao.
Thank you for having me. Bye.